Hello. We used gnomes in our story, The Gnome Who Couldn't Leave Home. And so I thought we could make a gnome today. I could show you how to make a gnome because they're really useful in lots of stories and they're just lovely to play with and for children to tell stories with. So here's 3 little gnomes. Let's pop them off to the side here. This is your pattern for a gnome to be transferred onto fabric. Wool felt is great. If you are desperate and you don't have any wool felt at home and you don't have any way of getting felt, although you might be able to order some off the internet, you could use a good thick fabric. You'll probably have a little bit of problems with fraying at the edges, which is why felt's so good. So first things first is to get to the length of embroidery thread. And Tadhg is busy here demonstrating blanket stitch because that's the stitch that we will use to sew the little gnome together. Now I'm tying a knot in the end of my thread. In fact, I'll probably need to tie 2 knots just to make it big enough not to slip, because we're going to do a blanket stitch all the way down here and then lift your beard up, little gnome, all the way down there and around the base. Blanket stitch is great because it holds 2 raw edges together in a decorative way without an overlap. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to bring my needle up right through the point of the hood. Now when I said I needed 2 knots, I actually meant I need 3 knots. This is finer embroidery thread than I usually use. So we'll try that again. We'll pop the needle back up through the point of the hood. I won't pull it quite so hard. Tuck your thread in. Now, a blanket stitch just means that when you go through your 2 layers, 1, 2, like that, and you pull it through, you actually want it to catch. And I'll do that again. And push it through. But I've made a loop here in front, and I'm bringing the needle through the middle of that loop. So it's the same as just pushing my needle through, straight through like that. And then when I pull it all the way up, can you see that there's, if I kept pulling, I would just make what we call a dolphin stitch, where it goes in and out. But we actually want to catch that loop in our stitch like that. Tadhg, can you show on the camera how you, I'm just going to show close up Tadhg doing his stitching. You're going to show us how to do it. That's it, Tadhg. Good job. So he's pushing it through. And just before that little loop at the back disappears, he's putting his needle through and pulling tight. Well done, Tadhg. Excellent work. So that's one way of doing it, where you can catch it at the end, or a quicker way is to make the loop in front, bring the needle through, pop it out through the middle of the loop. It would be quicker if I wasn't getting all tangled up in my own fingers. There we go. The shorter your thread is, the easier this gets. So you finished your hood. Well done, Tadhg. Great job. All right, so we're all going to get on with our hoods, and we'll come back when we're done. Okay, so I've got to the end of our little hood, and I'm just going to do a couple of little stitches, tiny little stitches that you won't even see, backwards and forwards through here. And then I can snip that thread off. That's your hood done. And then you're going to do the same thing, but Tadhg, can you show what you're doing with yours? So I'm going to do the same thing, but down the front here. Okay, so a little knot inside, hidden away, and then, oh, you're going up the way around the face, are you, Tadhg? Yeah. I was going to go down there. Okay, so Tadhg's going right around, and instead of sewing the 2 edges together, he's just doing one edge, and he's going to actually go all the way around and do the face. So you can do that, sweetheart. So you can see that these ones have got stitching all right the way around the face as well. But I'm not going to do, I'm just going to show you how we're going to finish off here by doing the exact same thing. Little knot, and then blanket stitch all the way down the front, as neat as you can. I'm going to do it quite quickly, so mine won't be as neat as yours. Sorry, I'm a bit faceless at the moment. There we are. And when you get to the bottom, what's that? A bit loose, you can pull it tight as you go. Right. So the other thing you can do with these is actually make lovely little finger puppets too. You see? So now that this is finished like this, it needs a bottom on it and it needs to be stuffed. Now it can stand like that okay, but there's a little trick to these, which is a 10-cent coin. So find yourself a 10-cent coin and then draw around the coin and cut that out, because this is going to be your base, but the coin is actually going to hide inside it, and that's going to make it nice and weighty. These have all got coins in them, nice and weighty, so they sit and they don't fall over very easily. So I just use this fleece here. This is far too high quality to be stuffing with, but it's just what I've got right now. You can use a knitting needle or a pencil. Make sure you stuff it right up into the point of the hat, right inside. Watch your thread doesn't get tucked in as well. Tuck, tuck, tuck. You will be quite amazed at how much wool can actually disappear inside things that you make. It's really quite an amazing thing. It really does just keep stuffing and stuffing and stuffing. All right, so when you feel it's stuffed enough, they're pretty firm, these little gnomes. Good to make them firm and robust. It's also a lovely thing for a little toddler hand to hold on to. It's too squishy, it just doesn't have that same feeling about it. Now that whole lot of white wool that I was holding is now inside this gnome. Now your gnome, of course, does not need to be a white gnome. You can make them light brown gnomes, dark brown gnomes, whatever kinds of gnomes you fancy.
Oh, this colour.
You want to be dark brown gnome, yeah? So once your wool is stuffed in, you add your 10-cent. Oh, this is where the stuffing is tricky. It starts to come out again. Stick your 10-cent coin in too and give it a good push down, because you can let it spring back up again when you're finished. And then set your base on top of the 10-cent coin. And you're going to use the same blanket stitch all around the base. So you're holding your two edges together just as if they're the two edges of the cloak, of the hood or the jacket, and make your loop and go round and round again, like that. Now I'm just about round and I've got not a huge amount of thread left, and when you get to the shorter bit of thread, rather than trying to make a loop, it is actually easier just to push it through and then to go back through the loop just before you complete the stitch. Just when your thread's getting a bit short, this is actually an easier way of doing it. And it means you don't have to change your thread at the last minute. You can actually keep doing this until there's very little thread left. Oops. So when you get to the end, I just need to finish this off. Make sure you sort of overlap your last little one so that you're making it nice and secure at the bottom. You can see. There we are.
Do it?
I don't know, darling. That was a shout out to you, Marla.
Zara.
And Zala.
I mean, Zara.
Oh, Zara, that's right, yes. There we go. So I'm just doing the last two couple of stitches and I will snip this.
They're big stitches. They're really big.
Now, this little gnome's got quite a cute little twist at the top. That just happened by fluke, but you can make those things happen if you want to. And you can choose whether or not you want your gnome to have a little beard or not have a beard. And as I say, they're very steady, so they're good for children because they don't have to worry about them always falling over. They don't fall over very easily. If you do want to give your little gnome a beard, grab yourself one of these. Another great craft thing to invest in. You'll also need a bit of foam. This is a felting needle. It's got little barbs at the bottom, so when you poke wool with it, the little barbs in the wool and the little barbs in here work together to enmesh the wool. This isn't something you do when the children are around, but you can just take a little wisp of wool and hold it on there and then use your needle and just do gentle pokes. But as I say, you never do that when small ones are around. It's a little bit upsetting. So there is a gnome. In fact, there's as many gnomes as you want. Now, if you want to increase the size of the pattern a bit, you can make one a 20-cent one. So your base will be big enough to hold a 20-cent coin. And that's what this one has inside it. This one's a 20-cent gnome. It's a little bit bigger. Better for slightly bigger hands, perhaps. Great for storytelling, all of them. Or if you need a big gnome and a little gnome, you can make them all different sizes. Just use this standard shape and enlarge it or decrease it. And away you go. Tadhg, how are you going? Can we have a little look? So Tadhg is now going right the way around the face of his gnome. I'll just take this pin out for a second. He's going right the way around with his beautiful blanket stitch. And when he gets back to the beginning, he'll sew down here as well. And then he'll stuff it. And his is a 20-cent gnome. So he'll do his 20 cents in a bit. Now you can also use this technique. Just give me a moment, I'm pausing you for a sec. To make what we call slipper or boot gnomes. If you can get some dolly pegs, and in fact you don't even need to look for vintage ones anymore. I think they sell new ones. Places like Ned's Emporium, if you can get to one of those kinds of shops. Now, if you have a pair of slippers or gumboots or shoes and you want to keep them together in a pair, your little slipper gnome will do that for you. You see? And it's exactly the same. It's just a very small version of that pattern. And the top of the hood is blanket stitched down, but rather than sewing all the way down the front and stuffing it, it's just caught with a little thread around the neck of the dolly peg. And that really takes just a few moments, but a lovely little present for a child. Nice little surprise.
Sally, can you make wooden gnomes?
I can't make the wooden gnomes, no, but clever people can, and we can always make clothes for wooden gnomes,
I got a little wooden gnome from Christmas.
You did, didn't you? And your little wooden gnome had a little cape just like this on it, didn't it?
Yeah. And it had a little bow like that.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. All right, so off you go and make some gnomes and get ready to tell some stories.
I'm little.
Okay.